Oxford from the inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth.
Hiya, I'm Siam, and welcome to Oxford from the Inside, the good, the bad, but always the truth. Today we're here with Nikita. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Nikita. I'm in my fourth year doing French and linguistics at Oriel College, and I've also been managing Oxford from the Inside this year. So it's really exciting to be on the other side of the podcast.
Nice. And today we're going to be talking about your year abroad for modern languages. So Nikita, could you explain to us what a year abroad is, which subjects in the university that do year abroads, and yeah, just a general introduction to it.
Yeah, sure. So the year abroad is a crucial component of a modern languages degree at Oxford, just like it is at universities across the UK. So for most of the European language degrees, you will do your year abroad in your third year. So that's what I did last year. I went to France and I lived in France for about 8 months. Um, for certain language combinations, you will do your year abroad in your second year. For example, if you choose to do Russian ab initio, so you start it from scratch at university, you will do a year abroad in your second year, and this will involve like an intensive language course, um, just to like get you up to scratch with the language. Um, I don't remember all of the exact combinations, but they're all available on the university website, so you can look it up for your course that you're interested in. In terms of what you can do, if you're doing like the traditional year abroad in your third year, you basically can go down one of three pathways. You can either study uh, at university for 1 or 2 semesters. You can do an internship at a company, or you can do what I did and teach in school as a language assistant. Most language assistants choose to go with the British Council, but there's other kind of avenues you can go down. You can work with private companies and uh, go to the schools directly. But yeah, that's like an overview of the year abroad.
Nice. So you said like you worked as a language assistant. I'm presuming that was in France.
Yeah, so I was in a city called Toulon, which is located in like the southeast of France. It's between Marseille and Nice, so yeah, on the coast, on the French Riviera. Basically, how it works in terms of being assigned a place to work is when you apply for the British Council, at least for France, you can apply for like a certain zone, but you don't know where exactly you're going to be placed in that zone. So there is a little bit of uncertainty there, which is worth bearing in mind if, for example, you're thinking about going down that route. It's worth bearing in mind that you might want to work in a city, for example, but you might get put in a very rural environment. So there's an element of like adaptation that needs to go there.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. So how much so with the year abroad, how much support do you get from the university, both in terms of planning the year abroad as well as like financially? Because I guess those are the kind of questions that applicants are wanting to be curious about in terms of how it actually the year abroad materializes itself.
Yeah, I think the university in some ways has its hands tied a little bit. For example, with the consequences of Brexit, they're not allowed to give you visa advice in case it doesn't work out, and you know the possible consequences of that. There are year abroad sessions offered during the year preceding your year abroad, usually quite early on in the year, where they'll outline things to you, specific administration procedures you need to follow, such as like forms you need to fill in, things like that. But I do think a lot of the support is encouraged by the university to be given from other students. So people who are coming back from the year abroad, who can kind of explain what they did, how they dealt with certain issues, things like that. So on an administration level, you do have a lot of freedom to plan what you want to do. In some institutions, it might be that they decide uh, you're going to study at this university in like an exchange program, and you'll do this course and this course and this course. Whereas at Oxford, it very much isn't like that. So like I know friends who studied for the whole year. I know friends who worked abroad for the whole year. I know people who went to so many different places and did so many different things. So yeah, the world really is your oyster in that respect. In terms of the financial side, it's a really good question. It's worth bearing in mind that you do still pay tuition fees for your year abroad. So you make sure that you're still like applying for student finance if that's applicable to you. And in terms of extra funding, the university takes part in the Turing scheme, which is what replaced Erasmus after Brexit. And they do give you lots of information about that and how to apply. There's a lot of forms that go out. So, and yeah, that's something that really helped me on my placement. But it's worth checking kind of the specific rubric of the scheme and which placements are applicable or not.
Nice. And I was wondering, do you know if students still get their maintenance loan for the year abroad?
Yeah, they do. You still get that.
Oh, nice. Okay, so yeah, that does sound quite exciting and very like feasible to manage the year abroad. So, and is there like a minimum requirement? Because it sounds very flexible. So I was wondering, is there like a minimum requirement for a student to be in a country that speaks the language that they're studying in?
So the rubric that Oxford set out is, I believe, 24 weeks spent in the country where that language is spoken. I think there are slightly different requirements for people doing joint languages because it is probably a bit more difficult to organize perhaps two extended stays in, for example, France and Spain if you do French and Spanish. Um, and yeah, I believe there are kind of ways around that, and they might advise you to do a slightly shorter placement in one country if that would work out better. But I think overall you have to spend at least 24 weeks abroad. And there's ways they have of kind of just checking you've done that. A lot of it is jumping through hoops, but yeah, it's all presented in a pretty accessible way.
So it sounds quite exciting, quite useful. I mean, o- outside of the year abroad wise, in that it's like an extra year for your undergrads. Most of it will be spent in another country, but kind of into, I guess students could also use it to get ahead with finals or catch up with work they haven't done. Is that common for students to do that in the year abroad?
Um, I think you get some advice from tutors to maybe read around your subject, try and immerse yourself in the culture. But most people kind of want the break. Personally, I was quite burnt out after my second year. And I was really looking forward to just immersing myself in the French culture, getting to know new people, practicing my French, teaching, which is something I really enjoy. So although there is that element of, okay, I can get ahead for finals, there is really a lot of time in your fourth year. I'm kind of, I was kind of surprised when I came back, and I can already feel like I've improved my French since I've gotten back from my year abroad. So yeah, what I'd say is like, don't think that you have to like make all your notes for finals on your year abroad. Um, it's it's really a good opportunity to just go out, meet new people, have experiences that you might not have had otherwise. And so yeah, I'd like focus on making the most of that rather than kind of being stuck in your room making notes when everyone else is out socializing.
Nice, yeah, that sounds very sensible, very wise. Yeah, I think, and also, I guess what's it's quite cool in how you get to have that year and like a break to the finals drive, whereas like other undergraduate degrees, there is no if you feel
Mm.
burnt out after second year, there's not too much you can do, not too much you can do. The students do take a year out, which that is an option, but most people would carry on with finals and just keep going until the end. So that might be quite interesting for students thinking about like if they're deciding between like English or French. The course is actually like they're structured very differently. Because English will be 3 years, whereas French you have this year abroad.
Yeah, absolutely.
So really, I really want to hear about what was your year abroad like, and so I know you said that you was a language assistant, but what was it like day to day, like week to week? Which kind of things would you do? What was the city? What was the town like, etc.?
Yeah, so um honestly, my overriding memories are just having a really nice community of assistants in the town where I lived. It's a pretty small city compared to places like Paris or Lyon. And so during the week, it was there wasn't there weren't many opportunities to, go out much or socialize because, we'd be working very early the next morning. Um, and so compared to Oxford, where you do feel sometimes like you have to cram everything, you have to make each day incredibly meaningful if you're not doing this assist it feels like, where have the 8 weeks gone during a term? Because the school terms were a lot longer, you had the half-term breaks, which were really nice and gave me a really good chance to come back and visit my friends who were still in Oxford last year, and also to explore some other countries in Europe. So yeah, in terms of like the structure and my overall schedule, I felt like it really worked well for what I wanted to do. And yeah, in terms of like the people I met some incredible people from across the world. I think that's one of the overriding memories I have from last year.
Nice. So were you working in uh like English language classes, like French students learning English, or was it like French literature lessons?
Yeah, so as an English language assistant, you you're basically teaching English as a second language. And so how it worked for me personally was the students would come to me in like small groups of up to 15 people. And I'd do activities with them, I'd get them to practice their speaking skills, just like gain more confidence. I'd also tell them things about British culture, like I don't know, how we celebrate Christmas, uh, different traditions we have, things like that. Things about the different countries in the UK, pretty much anything to do with like Anglophone culture. Um, so yeah, just being there as like a native speaker, of English and just helping them to improve their confidence really.
Nice. And if like there was an applicant who was like torn between a course that whatever it was that didn't have a year abroad, like history or English, or and they were comparing that to French or Spanish that did have a year abroad, what what benefits would you say or experiences that you've had that are like quite special to the year abroad?
So I think one of the things I took away was like it was a year in the real world. Sometimes university and Oxford in particular can feel like living in a bubble. A lot of people on their year abroad have to organize their own accommodation. This involves, communicating with landlords in a second language, organizing bills, things like that we might not perhaps think about, particularly here at Oxford, where you do live in college accommodation a lot of the time, particularly in your first 2 years. Um, and I think apart from that, just the opportunity to travel, to gain confidence. There were so many times, particularly at the beginning of last year, I was just terrified, just like terrified to like go out and like speak in a second language all the time and potentially embarrass myself. And I definitely embarrassed myself several times. One funny anecdote I have is when I first met my landlord, I accidentally told them I would pay in slang. Um, I don't quite know how that happened, but yeah, they laughed at me a lot, and then they explained it. I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, there's bound to be those instances where you feel really out of your comfort zone, and you're like, what am I doing here? What's happening? But I think it's just such a enriching and rewarding experience. That yeah, if you're passionate about languages and say you're passionate about other subjects as well, I think Oxford in particular does give you the opportunity to combine subjects in joint honours. So if it's something you're struggling like choosing between, then I'd really encourage you to like look at the joint courses and see if there's anything there that appeals to you as well. Because I think yeah, the year abroad is really a unique experience.
Nice. I think that is there was anything else that you wanted to add? I think that was quite a comprehensive overview of the year abroad.
Um, I think one last thing I would say is this is perhaps more directed at people in second year who might be about to go on a year abroad next year. Yeah, there's going to be times where, you might feel a bit lonely, a bit homesick, struggling a little bit, maybe to make friends or settle in. And just remember that there's like always people there to support you, whether it's at the university, kind of linking back to what you were asking earlier about the support. You do get like frequent communication while you're on your year abroad, not just from admin staff, but like from tutors as well. And yeah, it is both a long time and what feels like a short time after it's done. At the end of the day, it is just a year, so you can do with it what you want. Don't feel like you have to, achieve all your life's goals, but at the same time, do try and put yourself out there because you'll get so much out of it.
Thank you so much, Nikita, for that broad overview of the year abroad. I know that upcoming applicants listening in will find that really helpful because it's difficult to and like and I translate what a year abroad is is what it seems like on a website, but actually hearing it from someone is a much more paints a much more vivid picture of what it's like. Um, yeah, I think that's all that we have time for today. So thank you, the viewers, for tuning in, whether that's through your podcast or through YouTube, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks.